Welcome to VidZet, your home for careful consideration of our common concerns. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Today I'm going to talk briefly about two items that are in the news. One in the news more than the other, but they're both important issues. The first one is the school shooting in Maryland. Now, you'll recall after the Parkland shooting, we had this huge organized get-together. We're going to leave school, and there were all kinds of kids who were punished for not joining the anti-gun protest. Well, it turns out that Great Mills High School had a walkout, just like a whole bunch of other high schools around the country. That was 1 week ago. This week, in response to the walkout, you get a school shooter. We know right now that this school shooter was one of the students. That means he was at most 18 years old, or if he was really slow, 19. Doesn't really matter which one, because in the state of Maryland, you have to be 21 and you have to get a license to own a gun. Therefore, this kid was completely prevented from having a gun under any legal circumstances. Yet he comes into the school and shoots it up. Now, before we get to how this turned out, remember, I talked at one other time about having defense in depth. First, you have good police work, and if anything turns up, that's one layer that'll catch somebody. You watch on social media, that can catch some more. Then what you do is you look at the entrances to the schools. You make sure that you have a limited number of entrances, and you have officers there who are able to identify people who don't look right. That's another layer. None of these layers are perfect, but they all help. Ultimately, the last layer is the one that made the difference at Great Mills High School. You had a school resource officer who did something very different from what the school resource officer did in Parkland. Instead of waiting outside, this guy ran to the sound of the gunshots. He engaged the kid who was shooting with his own pistol, shot the kid, and ultimately killed him. This is another case of a good guy with a gun stopping the attack of a bad guy with a gun. Defense in depth might have prevented the kid from getting in, but once he got in, you needed a good guy with a gun. All of the stuff that they had before, all of the walkouts, all of the licenses, all the age 21 restrictions did nothing. I'm sorry, those laws are worthless. Those protests are worthless. You need good guys with guns to protect good people who don't have guns. Now there's a second piece of the news out there, and that's from a company called Cambridge Analytica. Now, apparently the Trump campaign hired Cambridge Analytica to get some information, to try to build some database and so on. It turns out they did, in fact, get information on 250,000 people who were Facebook users. The left is screaming bloody murder about this. How can they possibly do this? How could they get that from Facebook? Oh, this is terrible. This is collusion, whatnot. Curious part is, once Facebook found out they were doing it, no problem, keep on doing it. The reason is Facebook is actually a data gathering company disguised as a social media platform. Their business model is built from taking your personal data and selling it to other people. So most of us who have some smarts don't post a whole lot about themselves on Facebook in terms of who you are, where you are, etc. You limit access to that and go under your security settings, and you disable access of anybody but your personal friends, or you can even disable those from finding out some of these things. That way, you end up using Facebook in a way that doesn't expose everything about you. Well, enough about that. Cambridge Analytica, oh my God, this is a horrible scandal. 250,000 pieces of data. Let's take our little time machine and turn back to 2012. It turns out that Obama's re-election campaign gathered millions of user profiles and data. That's many times bigger than anything Donald Trump's campaign did. And it was done with the direct cooperation of Facebook. Facebook helped the Obama campaign. So we have the first point is Obama did a whole lot more. They bragged about it, and nobody said boo. All of a sudden, we have a tiny piece of information, and the left is up in arms. So what you have to do when your lefties come up is you say, oh, you're worried about 250,000. What about 25 million or 50 million that Obama got? You're not worried about that? Oh my goodness. You just hit them with reality. Now they have to process that. They may have to actually think. But let's go a little further. There's one more big piece of information here that we have to look out for, and that's called the McCain-Feingold Campaign Finance Reform Act. McCain-Feingold says that no individual or no company can give more than $2,700 to a presidential candidate in the primary and a similar amount in the general election. That's $5,400 total. The millions of records that were given with the assistance of Facebook absolutely necessarily were done with the knowledge and consent of Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook. He's known to be a hard lefty, and he cooperated with the Hillary Clinton campaign to give all of that information, to the Obama campaign to give all of that information to them. That is a campaign contribution in kind. And what it means is Zuckerberg and the Clinton campaign both committed campaign finance violations that are felonies. It was a knowing and deliberate violation of the law on a grand scale. Now, should we be surprised? No. But let's pray that the Justice Department takes notice of this and says, let's look at it, and there may be a little bit of action we can take. And by the way, it's almost certain that Obama knew about it, and that puts him square in the crosshairs, as well as Mark Zuckerberg. This is not something that should be settled with a fine. There are prison sentences defined for crimes like this, and that's what ought to happen. Until next time, I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and enjoy our website, vidzet.com. Thank you very much.